Yeah, it was a
Right,
completely
let's do this. Guys, come on, let's get this.
Welcome to Late to the Party, where we take the opportunity to review movies that are at least 10 years old, and we're reviewing these movies from the perspective of 3 Gen Xers and 3 millennials. Sorry, guys. This week's movie is going to be Conan the Barbarian from 1982. This movie was directed by John Milius, and it stars, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan the Barbarian, James Earl Jones as Thulsa Doom, Sandal Bergman as Valeria, the not forgettable Jerry Lopez as Subutai, Mako as the Wizard, and my personal favorite, Sven Ole Thorsen, who plays Thorgrim, one of Thulsa Doom's head henchmen. Currently, the movie has a rating on Rotten Tomatoes of 64% with the critics and 74% with the audience.
Really?
So, yeah, only 74%, if you can imagine such a thing. But anyway, let's take an opportunity to go ahead and review the movie then. And let's, out of deference to our great leader, Nate, let's have you start off, Nate, and let us know whether or not you think this movie can be made today. Does it stand up?
Oh, yeah, this movie was amazing. I want to say that the whole thing held up, all of the... I watched it on DVD. The biggest thing for me watching it on DVD that didn't hold up was the outtake scenes were horrible. But aside from the outtake scenes, it was amazing. I want to say that the only thing that kind of seemed a little bit dated was when they had painted the hieroglyphics all over Conan, and they were trying to keep the spirits from taking him. The spirits looked kind of hokey, looked like, somebody with watercolors could have did that nowadays with, $100 at Walgreens? Is that
$100, can it be done? $100 movie?
Thrift store.
But no, I mean, it started a whole generation of movies.
Yeah.
It was that one, The Destroyer, Red Sonja even. Like, I'm so ready to take my kids down the rabbit hole with this. It was a real good time, especially because the other ones don't have as much boobies. So it'll be safer for the kids.
All right.
Yeah. All right. How about the boys from the cave? Let's start with Isaac, since he's really into character tonight.
All right, would you want me to start? Golly, gosh. This movie, don't remember it being this boring. Fuck. I was so bored. Like, where the fuck is the action? 2 minutes into action, then the rest just fucking waiting. And all of a sudden, you finally see me in the flesh. I'm being choked. So, I'm sorry. So, like, it was boring. I don't remember it being this boring when I was young. I think I may have fast forwarded a lot to the action scenes when I was younger, and a lot of the talking I didn't really pay attention to, and a lot of the slow builds to the battles. But action was good. Action was fun. The boobies, I think that's what I fast forwarded to a lot too, was the boobies when I was younger. I don't think I've ever really watched this whole movie in its entirety in one sitting. And like I said, it was boring, but I watched it all the way through, and I enjoyed it when the action was going on. And I was like, dude, this movie's long. This movie's really long. It could have been cut in half for sure. They could have gotten rid of some stuff, I feel.
Ooh.
But
right.
Other than that, it had a good action. It showed you Arnold in his prime, and I loved a lot of the montages to get through all his fighting in the very beginning of his gladiator days. But yeah, I enjoyed it to an extent. It brought me back to the old boobies that I remember watching as a young man. I'll
Arnold only
pass it on to Lego.
20 lines. Arnold only had 20 lines. How much are they going to cut from it?
Right.
All right, Lego, what do you think?
Man. I really like this movie. I didn't feel bored. I feel like it could absolutely be made today. I found like myself wanting just a little bit more JPEG throughout the film. Like there was a few moments where it was like, I wish they had better cameras, but it was kind of charming, you know. I feel like if you go back and make like a movie that's made in supposed to be like olden times, doing it on like an old camera or having it be older, just it brings it more real. Like you don't want it crispy looking like The Matrix or like, you know, Westworld or something. You want it a little bit gritty, and I appreciated that. So I think all the effects and everything kind of hold up. I mean, I do wish Arnold had a little more like interaction, a little more dialogue and all that. I feel like he was probably the weakest link in the whole movie, which is kind of sacrilege to say probably, but I don't know. It was a great movie all around. I think it could totally be made today.
All right, Jose.
I'm right there with Lego, man. This movie was a heck of a lot of fun. I actually enjoyed it a lot. I was really surprised that you know, a movie with a shirtless man, you know, that's really buff could have kept me as entertained as it did. I was a little kind of questioning myself after that, but let me tell you, man, I am a huge I love Frank Frazetta and his art, and it felt like watching a Frank Frazetta painting come to life, if you can imagine that. That's honestly the way I saw it, man. I loved it. I was not expecting to love the cinematography as much as I did, but some of those shots were freaking beautiful. It reminded me like, you know, I hate this. It's weird, man. I'm really conflicted with this movie because I don't know why. I thought I was going in there thinking it was gonna be like this really crappy thing, but I found some great things in it, like like starting off with the Nishi quote, talking about how, you know, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. You know, yeah, that guy, you know, whatever, his affiliations, but no, still a good way, kind of like this, like it kind of just set the tone. Just watching him grow from a child who's lost his parents, you know, being forced to be that slave, everybody else kind of dying off, and him being the one to survive. And I love the riddle of steel. That was so cool. That added to kind of help build on this epic quest that he was about to go on, if you can believe it or not. That's just how I was seeing it. I was trying to, you know, yeah, it's dated. Yeah, it has a few errors. Like, and I'll get to what I think is the worst scene. But it was still a great film. I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm actually ready to watch the other ones.
All right, Liz, what do you think?
I liked it. I know that I'm a big like Robert E. Howard fan, and this really kept to the character of like the novel and the stories that Robert E. Howard wrote with Conan. And the only thing I wish it would have had is a little bit more, believe it or not, more violence, because that's kind of how Robert E. Howard wrote it. But like, yeah, with the whole barbarian and it just everything was great. He wasn't like I know Arnold sounds like a dumbass when he talks, but like the character isn't dumb, you know what I mean? And it was like he's a smart character, and I love it. I mean, all the different scenes in between, even like the dialogues. I know it was like slow with a lot of the dialogue, but when you actually like really sit and listen to it, there's a lot of like philosophy and like wisdom and stuff in it. So it was a lot of fun. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I think the movie holds up over time. I don't know that it would need to be remade by today, but I think that the movie definitely stands in its place because it has been so influential, and that everything in it is very consistent, with the novels and the story. And as much as I like the sequel movie that happened, I think that the sequel does a little bit of discrediting to Conan's character, which is not done in this film. I think he holds up pretty well. Conan may not be intellectually stimulating, but he's a very shrewd and cunning warrior, and I think that a lot of that comes out in this film. And I don't want to break into too much of it because we're going to start talking about favorite scenes and least favorite scenes and that sort of thing. But definitely, I think the movie holds up over time. Even the scene with the demonic spirits, as was mentioned before, that just reminds me of the kinds of things that we saw from movies that were similarly in that time, like Poltergeist and Raiders of the Lost Ark. They had a lot of similar effects for ghostly phenomena. So that's not really outside the spectrum of what we saw for films in those days. Yeah. And I just want to add a small piece that I'm a big fan of Basil Polidorus, who is the guy who did the soundtrack for the movie. I think that his music is really, it's epic, and it really fits the tone of the film. Unlike a lot of high fantasy movies where there's magic and dragons and all this kind of stuff, Conan is kind of like low fantasy, where there's some like weird mysticism going on in the background, but it's a lot of just like kind of plain, swords and barbarians and that kind of stuff. But like Polydorus's music really kind of fits the movie and helps feed a lot of that just a lot of that. How do you say, like the
backstory,
the depth of the
of the
environment,
character and the environment.
It
was almost a character on its own.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. So let's talk about. We'll talk first about favorite scene in the movie, and then we'll move into worst scene in the movie. But I'd like to go starting with the cave this time, and we'll go in reverse order. So we'll give you a shot, Jose, to give us your favorite scene.
Favorite scene, man. It would probably have to be the conversation with him and his dad after he forged the sword. And he's telling him about the riddle, and he actually leans in and tells him the answer. And to me, that was kind of significant, like for me personally, because having a son, like wanting to, I've forged this, I've done this, and I can kind of see that reflected with me and my pops, and like him wanting to tell me what the answer to life is, like trying to, in case you get into a pickle, man, this is the answer. But it's almost like it doesn't matter that he told him the answer, because the truth is he has to discover that answer himself, and that's the quest that he's about to embark on. So to me, that was, like I said, when I talked about the opening scene, and like for me it's big, man. Like you kind of have to hook me from the beginning, because if you don't, like, I'm just your typical freaking movie watcher, man. I'll get distracted, I'll find something else, and I don't know, it's just that's just how it is. I've been wrong in other things, in books and in comics, we've been wrong with that. But for movies, I don't know, it's just, if it doesn't catch me, if it's not something, and like I said, I was coming in here thinking that it was gonna suck, and good, the story was great, and like I said, I just love that opening scene to set everything up with the father and son.
Nice.
Before the dad's taken out.
Right.
Spoiler alert, fool.
All right, Lego, what do you got for us?
I love that final battle, the one that happens in the stone garden, where they spend all that time setting up the spikes and everything, and then all of a sudden that music just drops and the fucking riders ride in, and it's an awesome fight scene. It's so good, but the thing that just carried me through that whole scene was that music was just so intense, and it just built through, like, and it kept building and it kept building, and oh my gosh, like I was swept up in it. I was swept up. I was 12 all over again, and I was just like, yes, this is so, yeah, like spill the blood, and I don't know. I really loved that, and you got to see a little bit of the smart Conan with the traps and his warrior prowess, and it was cool. It was a really good scene. I loved that.
And hey, when we pull up tomorrow, we're gonna be blasting Ride of the Valkyries.
There you go.
My favorite scene is the very end when he chops off James Earl Jones' head, and he's trying to convince him, like he's trying to like my son, and he's just like he listens to him, and he's like, nah, no, you're fuck.
Nah, fool.
His head off, and he just holds it, and then he just throws it, and that was like perfect ending for somebody who seeks revenge and saw his mom's head get lobbed off like that, and for him to do it was justice.
And
that was for you, Mama.
Did it take a couple of chops because it was like a broken sword?
Yeah,
wasn't it?
It was the broken sword. Wasn't that his father's sword?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he used the same sword that got his mom's head chopped off. He used. So that was perfect.
But it wasn't like a perfect cut either.
It was something that was going to be painful for sure.
Right.
It wasn't a sweet slice. So yeah, that was my favorite scene of the movie.
It wasn't a quick death. That dude suffered.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you, Nate?
I want to say that they had just set up the ambush scene, and I really liked that they had lots of, what is it, Mako? Mako. I had lots of Mako in there. I liked him, but he's got it all set up, and they're coming, and he says his prayers are crom, and if you don't hear my prayers, into hell with you. I was like, very, very Conan. So that was it right there, and it was just, I like that cerebral underdog setup. It reminded me of making punji pits at DeForest Park in the 80s.
Who knew that Nate was actually Conan in real life?
That might have been part of the inspiration.
Yeah. We should have seen it. It's Conan the Barbarian. It's Nate the Great. What about you, Liz? What's your favorite scene?
That's like tough because there's like I said, I like a lot of the like little dialogue scenes and little little sayings here and there. Like the what is best in life scene is great. I think though,
Lamentation of the woman.
That's right. I think my favorite though is also after Valeria dies, and he's standing there, and and Mako and the wizard are sitting there, and Mako starts crying.
No, it's not Mako. That's Subutai.
Oh, it's Subutai. Sorry. Yes,
Mako is the name of the guy who played the wizard.
The wizard. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. I got the guy right, but he's sitting there crying, and the wizard asks him, why do you cry? And he goes, I cry because he doesn't, or because he can't, or. I think it's because he can't. I cry for him. I cry for him.
Yeah.
Because he can't cry for her, or something along those lines. Because that he's in mourning. It was the great love of his life. You could tell that that's what it was. But yeah, he's so focused on like the revenge and it reminds me of V from V for Vendetta, when like she says stay with me, and that's another one of those like kind of great love story moments where he can't do it because he's so focused on revenge. And it's the same thing with this. He's so focused on like the revenge of his mother, the revenge of his tribe, because his whole tribe is dead, and the love of his life. And he mourns it, but he won't show it because he's too focused on this other mission, another thing. So it's kind of like, it must be the girl in me. That was like the most romantic part of the movie. It's the part that he wasn't crying, somebody had to do it for him. So.
Yeah, my favorite scene is, certainly the first encounter that Conan has with Thulsa Doom, when he's brought in by Rexor and Thorgrim. And he's kneeling there, and because he had plundered their temple and like killed the giant snake, and James Earl Jones is basically like interrogating him, and talking to him about the riddle of steel, and then he has one of his servant girls jump down and commit suicide, and he tells Conan, you see, that is the true answer. That is power. And of course, it's James Earl Jones, so it just comes out like, with so much force. And then at the end of it, Conan is barely listening and is not interested in anything because he's so bent on having his vengeance that, James Earl Jones just kind of dismisses him and just says something along the lines of like, fix him to the tree of woe. And you're just like, dude. So Conan gets crucified, it's
I don't
just.
know what that is, but I don't want any of that.
It's just like and in talking about all of these like favorite scenes, you're just reminded about how good the movie really is. You think like, oh, Conan the Barbarian, he's like this, shirtless weirdo, and it was made in the early 80s, and it's part of like the 80s action genre, and you're just like, who cares? But it actually has like a lot of substance. So anyway, let's turn from that and go for the worst scene in the movie, and we'll start with you.
The worst scene?
Yeah, the scene that you're looking at, you're like, ugh.
How about when he's affixed to the tree of woe and he bites the
vulture?
vulture?
That's the worst scene? That's just him with pure grit.
That's just gross. The worst scene? Shoot, I never really like thought of that, because like every time, what scene could be taken out is that whole. I mean, it could be taken out, but that's when he meets his traveling companion. That whole like witch in the wilderness. That whole like witch in the wilderness, like that doesn't need to really, but that doesn't need to be there. But like, if it's not there, then he doesn't meet his traveling companion. It was like almost a victim, or was going to end up being her dinner that night or something instead. Like, that part is just, to me, it doesn't have any substance other than to show boobies. But I think that's like the only, most of the rest of that stuff is just, I like the big snake pit scene. You can see how hedonistic they were with the fact they're having orgies while eating people, while having, you know what I mean? Like, there's all of that. It's just, I don't know. But yeah, I have to say that that's probably the worst scene is the witch in the wilderness, because that's just, it's useless. It's useless. Other than to have like the one sex scene in it. Well,
I mean, it is how he meets his buddy Subotai.
Yeah, I know, but you could have just met him being chased by dogs too in the wilderness, but or in the cave. I don't know.
Yeah, for me, I don't know that there's like a single worst scene, but one of the things that does bother me a little bit about like a lot of the combat scenes, and this is probably just the nature of the effects at the time, but a lot of times when people, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when people were getting stabbed or smashed over the head or something, you could tell that like underneath their armor or underneath their helmet is just probably like this big sack of blood, because it's like a ridiculous amount of fluid that comes out. And I'm just like, well, I mean, and I know it's supposed to be graphic, but it's just like somebody was like measuring out like an extra quart of blood every time that they did that. So it's just like popping like a balloon. And so sometimes it looks a little goofy. I think it happened too. The wizard gets stabbed in the butt at one point in that battle in the stones, and there's just like all this like blood like everywhere, and you're like, I don't think your ass got that much blood, and especially that skinny wizard living on the beach, probably like eating sand crabs and stuff. And where's all that blood coming from? But anyway, that part, I see those scenes and I'm just like, it really probably wouldn't be that gnarly. But anyway, Nate, what do you think? What's the worst scene?
I want to say that it was when Wonder Woman 1984 came and saved him on the battlefield.
Oh, boy.
Was that actually saving him? Was that just the shine of?
I think it just blinded. I think he thinks, you're not sure if it's actually somebody that he sees or if she actually does it.
I don't know, man. There was enough Vaseline on the lens for the shine in that shot. It Hermione of glamour shots in the 90s.
Yeah, I think it blinds the guy. Something blinds the guy.
Yeah, but
so,
I thought, doesn't she block his sword like he's gonna kill Conan? And
Yeah,
she blocks
I
it?
thought he was going to hit him from behind, and then she like blocked him.
yeah, and she blocks him.
I
And
think
then-
he's
And
blind.
he looked at her and saw her like Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh, you know, Prom finally answered his prayer.
No, it was Valeria. That was Prom.
Prom sent her back.
Whatever. All right,
Sorry.
Isaac. Worst scene. You should have a few.
It also has to be the succubus scene. Like I was watching it and my kid was there and I was like, dude, get out of here, kid. And then, like all the other movies were like incognito movies, but then that sex scene came and he like looks at the screen like, all right, dude, you gotta go upstairs. Like this scene wasn't really
To
necessary.
tell you what's gonna happen if you do this before you're married.
It was very corny too, the way she called him in and stuff, and then the way they got down. It was all corny all the way around.
Hey, but I think that was just like an example of how easy we are to manipulate.
Oh, for sure. Sure. Like I said, I would fast forward through this movie when I was a kid and get to all those scenes.
That was the SJW moment early on in the 80s. They were predicting that. Don't do this. This is bad.
Yeah.
Strong women.
This is what'll happen. They grow fangs.
All
He
right.
just picks her up and launches her into the fire. And she's just like, I'm this powerful wizardess, and I'm just gonna burn here.
No, then she turns into that
Yeah,
little
I
spirit
did.
flies away.
I don't know, but still, it's like, yeah, I want to
Yeah, I
think
didn't know
about
that wasn't true till like I was like 30.
that women were succubus.
I was like, oh man, gotta be careful with these women.
We'll get you every time.
All right, Jose, what's your worst?
I think it's just building off of what you were saying with the whole fight scenes. Like when he's in the first time in the gladiator pit and the other guy's going up to him and he's supposed to be biting him. It's very clear. Yeah, it's very clear. He's got like a sack of something and he's rubbing him down, like up and down his chest. But he's like, ah. And you could clearly see he's like, hey, that guy's enjoying his job a little too much right now. Like he's just really in, like he's picking the pecs up, man. He's like really. I was like, yeah, come on. I'm sure you guys could have done a better job than that. But that was probably it. Was just those fight scenes. Some of them were just like, come on, man. And it's kind of like what you said. It was to the technology of the time, but. I don't know, man. I know a guy enjoying a good peck touch when I see one, and that guy was enjoying himself a little too much, rubbing that blood on Arnold. Yes, a little to the left. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Lego, take this out of this insanity.
So the worst scene in the movie might actually be the best. So Conan's drunk with his pals, and they're walking through the streets causing a ruckus. And he just fucking cracks that camel. He just punches a camel, dude.
I wanted to do that as an honorable mention for the best scene in the movie, but I didn't. I'm glad you said it.
That camel had it coming.
He did. Dude, camels are dead.
He's
Someday.
The
I will
camel
say-
spit on it. He had to lay him out. That's just how it goes. I thought that was like,
Yeah, I will
street
say. I will say, you know what? I'm glad. I'm happy that he didn't discriminate. He kicked both animal and human ass. I also want to point out, though, there was no announcement at the end of those credits that said no animals were harmed during the making of this movie. So I'm pretty damn sure he knocked the camel out for real, man.
I'm both happy and sad about not that disclaimer at the end of the movie, but
All right, Nate, what do you got?
Listen, I animatronic time, dude, and there's no way they make that count.
moment.
I already I said
I'm
the Wonder Woman 1984.
That's right. Sorry, so did we go through everybody then?
Yeah.
Oh,
Were you still awake from
Yes.
the drive, honey?
sorry. I was trying to think that I had one more question. Now I can't remember. Oh, I do remember. I have one last question. So this last question is going to be, what particular thing did you want to see more of out of the film? Because I got the sense that there were some things that I wanted to understand better about what was taking place. So was there anything in the film that you were asking yourself, like, I wonder what that's all about? And we'll go ahead and start with the cave guys. We'll start with Isaac. If you can think of anything that you were watching in the film and you thought to yourself, I wonder what's going on with that.
Can't really say.
Can't really say.
But besides,
like, how did you get
maybe more gladiator scenes. That would have been cool. That's about it.
Jason?
Damn, I really wanted to understand the mysticism of this world. I felt like we were introduced to this myth of like giants and steel, and like we had this whole riddle, and there was obviously like spirits at work in this world, but there weren't necessarily great creatures. So I really wanted to see how that maybe came about, or what are the underlying forces of this world. Because
You're almost there, Lego. You're almost there. How do they just have a scene where Tulsa Doom transforms into fucking big ass snake like Cobra Commander in the G.I. Joe movie?
Yeah.
And then,
Where do you think they got it from, Nate?
I totally forgot
no,
about
I thought he would just turn into a bullfrog. I mean, who turns from a bullfrog into a snake?
yeah, it was like they started to do the face stretch, and then they're like, oh, fuck it, it's not going to work. And then they just switched it all into a snake. It's like they gave up on the whole middle part of that shit. I would have liked to see that in the deleted scenes. In the deleted scenes, they have them going back to kill the princess's father, Christopher Plummer, I think he was.
Yeah.
When they're stabbing him with the knife, you hear explosions in his clothing of blood packs. So they poke him with the sword, and pack, and it just blood goes right there. And I'm just like, and then he's like, oh. He's doing his overacting. I expected him to speak with a mid-Atlantic accent. I'm glad they removed that from the movie.
Nice.
It's Max von Sydow, I told you.
So wait, Nate, was that what you wanted to know more about, or was that worst scene?
Both.
I wanted to know more about James Earl Jones having the powers of Serpentor. I mean, that was it, but there was a couple things. And I texted you guys yesterday. I was like, the theme of the movie, I was thinking like, the theme of the movie is they wanted everybody to have peace and throw down their swords and pick up flowers and go join the snake orgy, and then you're at the snake orgy, you don't realize that your Morlocks eating the Eloys, and
so good. Oh my god!
Right?
That's true.
Everybody, it made me think about the relevancy of that movie to right now, because everybody's crying for all this peace, but like peace has a continuous price that we have to pay, and you can never put your sword down. Otherwise, even if you're at the snake orgy, you're going to be eating your brother's leg. Moral of the story.
Oh my god!
Words of wisdom.
So deep,
Words of
Nate.
wisdom.
So deep.
Who
You should
like?
clean your garage more often. It's the flow of your garage that's causing this to happen.
Jose, what did you want to see more of in the movie?
I think the movie needed more camel punching, man.
Yeah.
There's a zebra.
That was the bread and butter, baby.
An ostrich.
That was the bread and butter.
There's a kangaroo for you. Just goes to the zoo, just knocking everybody out.
You could have punched the damn snake, like punched him into submission, like beat the crap out of the snake with your bare hands, and that would have been awesome. I don't know, man. I don't know what I would add. You know what? I think it's because I know that their sequel that I kind of want. I don't know. I didn't think too much as to what does this movie need more other than camel punching. I think because I know there's a sequel, I want to pop it in and find out, what else this world's got to offer. And nobody spoil it for me. I don't care if it's terrible. I'm still gonna watch it just because.
Dope,
I don't know. I think
I like it.
Yeah,
more.
it's like it's just like having that mentality. It's like, oh, okay, there's a sequel. All right. It didn't make me think, oh, what do I wish there was more of here? Because now I want to see the sequel address that or not. Mm-hmm. But if I had to contribute anything to the discussion, it would probably be similar to what Lego was saying. Just that other world that exists within this world. But other than that, like I said, the riddle was intriguing enough. The whole search for the answer. What does the answer mean? It's crazy because we actually don't ever hear an answer in the movie. Like you kind of have to come up with that yourself, and I freaking love that. So I think that I wouldn't want to say, I want to know what the answer to the riddle is, and I don't know. I have a good idea what it might be. It'll be a corny ass answer, but I think I have an idea. But it kind of puts that question out there. What do you guys think the answer to the riddle is?
Makes it personal.
And I like that. Yeah.
What about you?
I want to know how they grow those ginormous snakes. like that's that whole scene where like he goes. You're talking about when he's like all upset over the before he fixes him to the tree of woe in that like courtyard area. He goes, and so and so he grew it from a small little snake. And I'm like, good God, how did he get it to be? I mean, were they? Yeah,
Thorgrim was sad, and then you see Sven
like
Holy Thorst, and he's just like
all sad. He's like patting him on the back. And he's got like he's holding like the little snake over his neck. Like, this is my next new baby. Like, yeah, I want to know how the snakes got so big.
I think the orgies.
So when it was they were feeding the extra people to them.
I think that's how they got them big. Yeah.
It wasn't Miracle Grow. It was Orgy Grow.
Orgy Grow. It's pot of people and good hardcore sex.
Well, when they showed the snake, didn't it look like it had somebody inside of its belly already too?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't
think like somebody was in there.
Well, what about
it's not like the bodies that were down there.
Yeah.
Frank Oz was in there.
Like having owned a snake and seeing like the body, like the bones are like perfectly like that's not how it comes out on the back end. I'm just gonna tell you guys that stuff right now. You feed a mouse to a snake, it comes out looking like a piece of chalk. It doesn't come out like a perfect skinless like bones out the other side that looks still like a human. Just throwing that out there.
One of the things that I wanted to know more about is that when Conan is first set free and he's kind of traveling about and he's getting chased by the wolves and he climbs up on that like rock and then inside is that tomb with all of these what look like kings or something seated on top. And it's where he gets the sword from. And I think that that's supposed to be like an Atlantean burial site. It's why that sword that he finds is so powerful that it like destroys his father's sword. And so it's kind of what Jason was talking about. You want to know more about the background of the world, like, what's all these things going on in the background that kind of like build upon everything.
Yeah, that's because Robert E. Howard, Conan actually takes place in the Cthulhian mythos. Yeah. Too. And so it's there's all these ancient gods and things going on around it.
Yeah. It's
the
crazy
movie doesn't
stuff.
show it, but like a lot of times the books and the comics show it more.
Yeah, it just would have been cool to see more of that, I think, to understand like what's going on with that.
The sequel takes a little bit more of that.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go ahead and start wrapping things up with our buckets for this movie. We'll start again with Nate. How many buckets, sir?
Oh, I love this movie. It's a great movie from when I was a kid. I do like The Destroyer more, so I'm going to have to give it space to have a higher score. So I'm going to give it an 8. I don't give out 10s all willy-nilly like some of us do, but 8's great from Nate.
8's great from Nate. Nice. All right, Isaac.
Nate the 8.
I'm going to give it a 5.
5?
5 buckets from Isaac.
It's not funny.
Dude, what a barbarian.
Sorry. Back.
It's a tumor.
All right, Jason.
10. It's a 10. This movie's so sick. Who the fuck could deny this movie? Give it its proper place. Give it the proper bucket spilled. This is a 10 out of 10 bucket spilled. Boom.
Nice.
Jose?
As much as I love it, I don't think I can do 10. Mainly because it does leave out that little bit piece that I wish I got more. And then also, I may be wrong in this, but you know, I may be wrong in this, and correct me if I am, but I don't remember seeing a moment where it made me go, "Oh, that's where they got it from." Like I don't recall like seeing another, like you know, like for example, when they do something in one movie and it, you know, references the other, oh, they're doing that, like, you know, it's like a pop culture thing. This one didn't have a moment like that for me. So
movie and other stuff.
yeah, like it's like Josh said once. He said a 10 is reserved for a movie that's completely epic, that changes and transforms the way we see everything. I don't recall that moment with this movie. It's a great movie, and I thought it was amazing, and there was so many things I loved about it, but I just don't remember a moment where I was just like, oh, this changed the game for sure. Now, I could be wrong, but that was just the way. That's why I choose to go with a 9 out of 10.
How about you?
I'm gonna go with an 8 as well. There's a lot of great moments, great things in this movie, but there's just a few things here and there that, you know, can be taken out. Yeah, it could be taken out or shortened a little. It's not perfect. But it's still a really good movie, and we watch it, you know, at least once a year, if not more.
At least
every, yeah, maybe twice. So it's at least an 8. Yeah, it's not epic in the scale, but it's still really good.
Well, it's most certainly on my you know, top 10 list of favorite films of all time. I don't think I would go as far as giving it a 10. I'm going to give it a solid 9. I think it does have some influence down the road. I think that the difficulty with saying that Conan has been influential in the way that other films that we've reviewed have been is I think, maybe you guys have noticed this or maybe you haven't, but it seems to me that fantasy films, for some reason, don't usually leave a big impact in the film industry in the way that like action movies or sci-fi movies or horror movies might do. Those movies, for some reason, tend to have like some sort of long-term downstream effect. But fantasy films just don't seem to have that kind of impact, and I'm not really sure why that is. But anyway, there's no doubt for me that Conan is one of the most iconic fantasy films out there, and that it definitely deserves, at least from my perspective, a 9 out of 10 buckets. So anyway, that's our review for Conan from 1982, and continuing our new process of having different people in the late to the party reviews talk about new films. I'm going to be passing the baton on to Jose this week. So Jose, why don't you let us know what's to be expected?
Me?
Oh, Sean.
I want to thank Josh for this honor. I want to thank my mom and dad for having all the streaming services available, so I know my buddies will have these movies as well. All right. Following Josh's way of doing things last week, I loved it. So I have a couple of categories for you to pick from. Once you guys pick one of those 2 categories, I'll name off the 3 selections that we can go from. Does that seem fair? That seem cool? All right. So my first category is cartoons rule, fool. That's the first one.
I'm in.
And number 2 is that guy's not a superhero. So those 2 categories.
Oh, that's good.
That's pretty vague.
That's very creative.
I
I'm
like.
gonna go with
I
cartoons.
gotta go with the cartoons, personally.
Cartoon.
Super cartoons. Me and Lego.
I'm going with
Yeah.
the superhero because Lego hates all the superhero movies.
I do. I
You know
love
what?
cartoons.
I'm not, given Isaac's position on Conan today, I'm not really inclined to follow after him, but I'm going to. I'm going to be contrarian today, so I'll say let's go with the superhero flick. But I mean, I think that,
Right.
Liz again.
Liz
So
is
what
the
are we-
tiebreaker
Always a
again.
tiebreaker.
I hate you people. I really do, because then it's like, oh fuck, Liz made these stupid picks. It's her fault. Let's
You gotta go with me Lego again, Liz.
I know, I am. I want cartoons. I want to see cartoons.
Yeah.
You're walking back to California.
Just remember, I like peanut butter. You can always bribe me.
All right.
Just a
So cartoon.
Cartoon.
All right. So selections are, and yes, it's technically a cartoon. Akira.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. Spirited Away
Spirited Away.
or Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh shit.
wow,
Wow,
I've never
Jose.
seen Spirited Away.
wow.
I've never seen Akira.
What?
I
I've
love
never seen Spirited Away.
all three
I've
of
never
those
even heard
movies.
of Spirited Away.
You've never heard of Akira?
Wow.
Canada. I heard of Akira.
3 of those are really, really
Yeah, those
good.
are all three
Yeah,
good
damn,
films.
Jose, don't make me pick the. Don't make me be the tiebreaker for this
What's
one. You
the-
guys.
Let's go with Akira too
What's the
as well.
lane of Spirited Away?
What's that?
It's a Studio Ghibli film.
Okay, well, I don't know what that means.
So it's this girl gets sucked into a spirit world, and she like has to work in a bathhouse and kind of find herself and free.
You got me on that one. All right, Spirited Away.
Your bathhouse. That means there's potential.
Bathhouse.
It's a really good movie.
I want to see Akira. I'm going for Akira.
I'm going to go with the misses on that. I'd like to see Akira.
Is that 3 for Akira then?
I said Akira as well.
All right.
All right. We got
it.
Akira, guys. We got both the subbed and the dubbed version on Hulu. So made it easy.
I have to
Awesome.
good.
Awesome. Well,
Woohoo!
thanks, Jose, for the recommendations. We're looking forward to seeing Akira and reviewing it next week. And since I forgot to do the intro, we can just deal with it in the outro.
The outro.
This is our late to the party crew signing off. I'm Josh.
I'm Liz.
Nate the Great.
I'm Isaac.
I'm Jason.
And I'm Jose.
We'll see you all next week.
Bye.